Welcome to Apex Philosophy, the perfect place to find motivation. Be sure to subscribe and listen every day so you can become your best self.
What is happiness? Is it something that we can control? Is it possible to find it? By analyzing our history, biology, and evolution, we can see what factors helped us survive as a species. According to Rob Henderson, emotions benefit our genes. Studying human evolution tells us that emotions are evolutionarily beneficial. They must be important, otherwise we would not have developed them. Emotions send signals to our brains, telling our brains to act. Emotion for energy and motion. They set us in motion and increase our chances of survival as well as our own reproductive capacities. For example, the desire to collect things comes from the need for food and resources to survive. This also explains why we developed reproductive organs and lustful desires. It's our own body telling us that we need to pass our genes on so the species can survive despite our relatively short lifespan. This is also why we find physically fit people more attractive because, at a subconscious level, we understand that they have a greater chance of surviving in the wild, even if we as a society have tamed our modern environment. According to Rob Henderson, most organisms are inherently drawn to increasing fitness despite its adverse effects on health and happiness. For example, a man will go to the gym to be seen as ideal and to be noticed by a potential mate. This tells us that humans can go against temporary happiness if the perceived long-term happiness is greater because of it. In this example, the man sacrifices his own current pleasure, which comes from being in his comfort zone, in order to better himself physically, and in doing so, can attract a potential mate in the long term. When we look at happiness through this lens, we can see that it has helped us survive and is evolutionarily significant. For the most part, happiness comes from achieving our desires, or more accurately, making progress towards your goals. It's the pursuit that brings happiness. Achievement brings satisfaction. Happiness is a reward system used by the body to push us towards things that benefit our well-being or the well-being of the species. For example, happiness draws us to connect with other people and even other species. We have evolved to be social beings because being alone in the wild is dangerous. Our predecessors lived in tribes because this companionship increased their chances of survival. Additionally, we have learned how to relate and communicate with other species such as dogs to help us hunt. This is why we get joy and happiness from pets, family, and friendships. Rob Henderson explains, happiness is an affective state that motivates us to engage in actions that are likely to lead to outcomes that would, on average, lead to increases in the likelihood of survival or reproduction. So all of these desires, such as food or friends, are inherently vital to us as human beings. We are motivated to seek them. We desire to have friends, so we learn the necessary skills to have them. Similarly, we need food, so happiness, fear, and pain all motivate us to work and earn money for food. However, Henderson also tells us that happiness is just a proximate outcome. It's not an evolutionary outcome because otherwise we would all be happy right now. He describes evolutionary outcomes as those that increase our likelihood of survival or reproduction. Meanwhile, proximate outcomes are a result of your environment's effect on you. For example, when someone gives you food, you become happy because your brain tells you that you won't be starving anymore. Not starving equates to not dying. However, this is only for the moment. The brain also knows that this is a limited supply, and so you will be unhappy tomorrow when you don't have food anymore. The emotions we feel are temporary, as they change when the environment around us changes. They are there only to motivate you into action or reward you for actions that support the evolutionary outcome. So, how do we find happiness and keep it? First, we must recognize that happiness, like any other emotion, is transient or temporary. You can't be happy every moment of every day. Happiness is a side effect. It should not be the goal. Pursuing happiness will only bring frustration and suffering. However, if you pursue things that benefit your overall well-being, or that are beneficial to the survival of the human race, or according to Rob Henderson, things that increase our likelihood of survival or reproduction, you will find that happiness will follow. Graham Stephan tells us that happiness is outside of us. It's separate from us. We should not treat it as a destination. The worst and most common mistake that people make is restricting the flow of happiness into their lives. For example, they might say, "I will only be happy when I have $1 million in my savings account." Although that can be a motivation for some, it also means that they are only allowing themselves to be happy when they reach that goal. In other words, they will be unhappy and discontented with their life's journey until then. This is a problem because the journey is the majority of your life. So if you aren't happy with the journey, you will not be happy most of your life. You are chasing those fleeting moments after you achieve your goals, instead of enjoying the entire process. Don't set conditions for your happiness. Stephan Graham explains that setting conditions for happiness is like finding the meaning of life. For life to be meaningful, what do? You might say that if life has to have meaning, then I'm going to do the best I can to create opportunities that give my life meaning. If you do the same thing with happiness, you will try to create opportunities for you to be happy. The problem with that is, if you have to create opportunities for happiness, you are putting conditions on it, which creates a barrier between you and happiness. It is said that expectations are the thief of joy. This is another example of putting conditions on your happiness. It says, "I will be happy if things turn out as I expect." If you do that, happiness becomes fleeting and will go away after those conditions are met, or they no longer exist. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Mark Manson. You have to stop wishing for better circumstances and learn to enjoy the present moment. Again, it is about enjoying the journey. Stephan Graham tells us that everyone talks about happiness, and it seems that everyone is unhappy because they always focus on wanting to be happy rather than being content with what they have. This is reminiscent of the idea behind manifesting. You shouldn't say, "I want to be happy." Instead, you say, "I am happy." You are declaring that you are happy and conditioning yourself to believe it. It is a choice. By ignoring your conditions, not setting limitations on your happiness, and focusing on gratitude, you can be happy now. As a side note, happiness is not a behavior either. Do not tell yourself that you are not happy just because you are not jolly, sociable, or laughing joyfully. A happy person may be quiet or serene. They may be happy just being silent and at peace. They are content with everything. Don't confuse happiness with being jolly. To have a happy life, you must not seek happiness for happiness's sake. You must realize that happiness will come and go. As Rob Henderson says, happiness then, like anxiety, is an affective state with the primary evolved function of motivating us to engage in behaviors that would have led to evolutionarily adaptive outcomes under ancestral conditions. Happiness is not an end goal, it is a means to an end. Happiness is meant to motivate you to do something. It may be finding companionship with friends or spending time with family. It may be working out so you can attract a worthy mate. It may be going to college so you can get a higher paying job. The key is to remember to allow yourself to be happy today and stop putting conditions on yourself and enjoy the journey. Thank you for listening. Comment below. What limitations have you placed on your happiness that you can remove to allow yourself to be happy today? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.